Hello, so welcome to this session, Fundraising Plus, Getting Started. It's a bit of an induction for those new groups coming on board. It's a celebration for those who have completed at least 6 months. They can receive a certificate today, or whenever you're listening to this, that might not be today, but and then next steps, thinking about what next for groups. So the next slide will be the agenda slide. I'm not going to focus on that because actually I'm working on that based on the timings of this recording. Okay. So introduction to Fundraising Plus, how the decisions were made. So decisions, you will have filled out the baseline survey, and that gets put into an Excel spreadsheet that looks something like this. Each of your record is a line, so it would have your name, your organisational name, and so on. And I go through that and I mark it with red, amber, and green. So if you've done really well, you've answered the question really well, it's a green. If it's an amber question, you've not done so well, and red, you've missed something quite significant out. So as I'd already said in a previous video and when explaining to groups how to do really well in a baseline survey, the green ones would be that you've answered the question really well, you've shown that you are relevant to this particular thing, you know, to my work. So to be relevant, you need to ideally be a Black or disability group because those are the groups that get priority. And you need to be working in Lewisham as well. So there were lots of opportunities to show that throughout. You know, what's your target group is one of them. What's the need? So you would draw out there that you were a relevant group. And when I wrote the questions with a while ago with Leanne and with my line manager Ron, we tried to make the questions so that they would fit with what trusts often ask you. So hopefully anything that you've done here will be recyclable if you're writing to trusts. So things like, what are the needs that you're meeting or the assets that you are building upon? That is often the needs question is something that trusts will ask you. So hopefully you can recycle these. The other thing that the questions looked at was whether you were ready for the support. So for example, there are questions on there around whether you've got a budget and whether you have got plans as to what you're going to be fundraising for, whether you have your policies in place, and it might be that you've got some of them in place but need help with others, and I can direct you to support from other people for that. But that gives you an idea of how I marked it red, amber, or green. I then give a grade to each of the groups out of 10, 1 being low, 10 being high, and it goes to the other fundraising development managers and to Ron. They have varying amounts of time amongst them. Some of them may, well, they're all very welcome to go in depth and to check every single answer I've written. Some of them will be checking more like, do you actually fit with my work? Would you fit better with the sports FDM or the arts and culture or the cold spots? So yeah, try to make this process as transparent as possible. I explained all of this to groups previously, so yes. Okay, so what is Fundraising Plus? You get the 1 to 6 months, and during that time you get to 6 one-to-one sessions with me. And when we did the first cohort, that was all it was, just 6 sessions. And in response to feedback, thank you very much, we've extended that so you have the 7 to 12 months and you have up to 3 one-to-ones. Now, when I sent out the information about this cohort 4, if this is when you're listening, I said that might not be quite so many. but because of the extension to main grant funding from the council, I'm really hoping that we can fit in 3 sessions instead of, I think I've just promised the 2. I don't like to overpromise. So it's really good news that you'll have quite intense support in the first 6 months. A month will go by really quickly, and then in the 7 to 12 months it steps down, so you can hopefully you'll be empowered by then, and you will know what you want to do, and I'll just be sort of checking in to see how things are. And then in months 13 to 16 we had added in some coaching and stuff from Booker, and it will depend on whether Booker is able to come back as a volunteer. He's just had to pause his volunteering, but if that is available, obviously that'd be great. That's just an extra bonus, really, if we have volunteers that we can add extra bits in. But the main thrust of Fundraising Plus is the other stuff. And to be honest, even in the 13 to 16 month period, I have been helping groups from like cohort 1 anyway. So whatever cohort you're in, even if you've passed that 12 months, I'm not available 24/7, but yeah, book me in if you do need a little bit of extra like guidance or ideas. So that was on the left hand side of those arrows. On the right hand side of those arrows, we've got a few things that are available all the time, but especially for Fundraising Plus groups. So I check applications for equalities groups anyway, but especially if you're a Fundraising Plus group, you'll get priority. So get them to me as soon as you can. At least 2 weeks notice is ideal. I'll try and do what I can if you give me less notice, but I can't promise. So really, I would recommend making the most of that. Learning days. So later on, the Fundraising Plus groups will help to determine what learning days we have for the future. And so those are not necessarily like, they're not 9 till 5 days, but they might be half a day, or they might even be a learning evening. I've been adding in some of those. So there'll be a chunk of time where we find out about something and we hopefully workshop it as well. We actually start to do the work. So those are really great opportunities, and I publicise those on the Fundraising Plus WhatsApp, and you'll normally get about a week or so where you have priority to book, so you can take up the spaces on those. Depending on the actual event, you might be able to have just 1 space or more. When I have visiting speakers, I have to be more strict on the numbers, because they may say, their pricing is only for, say, 8 people or something. So yeah, do keep an eye on that. And later on in the slides, there's the link to sign up to the FDM WhatsApp group. That is only for groups who have been accepted on Fundraising Plus. Sorry, I said FDM just now. It says here, more proactive contact about opportunities. So because you're in my mind more, I will be thinking to myself, oh, I've met that person from a mental health group. They might be more relevant. So I'll try and be joining you up. And yeah, throughout we'll need to do some monitoring. So when you start doing, when you start as a cohort, you do a beginning survey, and then at the end, and I need to follow up with some of the previous cohorts and do a kind of a follow-on, how's it going sort of survey. So you've got all that, and do keep in touch with all the stuff that's in the Light Touch brochures as well. There's going to be stuff coming up. I'm speaking this at the beginning of May, but there will be stuff coming up in the coming months with NSIL. There's the fundraising conference. So just because you're on Fundraising Plus doesn't mean you don't make the most of the other things. And it's been really good to see how some groups have really made the most of the whole gamut of it. So Memorandum of Understanding, this is a document that sort of sets the boundaries of what Fundraising Plus is about, and it's here to empower you, it's here to be tailored to what you need around fundraising. And when you signed up, you agreed that you would commit at least 2 hours a week from your group. It can be from you, or it can be, you can spread that out. So if you've got volunteers, that might be them spending, some time on stuff, on action points. I call it your homework, so each time we meet, you should go away with some stuff to do. I may have some stuff to do as well, but the real change will happen as you start to really dig in and do some changes. So yeah, you are committing to remember the meetings. So later on, I'll be explaining about, please make sure you put a reminder on your phone if you need to. I send calendar invites, but please do try to remember to come along. And you'll see on the Memorandum of Understanding that if you repeatedly don't come to meetings, then it's a bit of a waste because somebody else could have taken your place. And ultimately, we would need to, if it became very bad, we would need to put somebody else in your place. The Memorandum of Understanding also explains how I'll be sharing data with our funder and with others. So later on, we'll see a little learning brochure, and the case studies that I put in there are a bit about the work that we do together. And so stuff like that, and the beginning and end assessments are available to the council. So I want to make that open and clear with you. So please check through the Memorandum of Understanding. It says here to check through, sign and return, but I'm going to actually change that and say that if you want to be part of this, this is what you're signing up to. Just people don't remember to fill it in and sign it otherwise. So who will you send? Tip, main contact person, but sending more than one can help, especially if there's a change of personnel. So we'll come to that again later. So getting started. I'm just trying to remember what this slide means because I've recycled this one. Yeah, if with the baseline survey, it's a really good idea in session 1 to talk through your application. And the reason for this is that it uses a lot of questions that are often in trust applications. So by doing this, you're in effect getting feedback on how to do a trust application. So actually that's bullet point 2, not numbers, but anyway, the baseline survey, we will, if you've been accepted onto Fundraising Plus, you need to do this survey to say how you are at the beginning of your time, and we'll redo it at the end, and hopefully we'll have made lots of progress. If you can do that before the session, even better, because it means that we're not using time in the session. There are some benefits of doing it together in the session, in that there are questions there like, what would you like to see more of, what do you need help with? So it can be useful to prompt discussion. And then setting goals and put them into a development plan. So we're going to start doing a bit of that today already. Each time we'll have a development plan that we go back to and we see how you're getting on with your goals. So at this point, during the real session, I will ask what previous cohorts found the best, booking all the sessions at once or as you went, and think about what's better for you, monthly, front-loaded, gap for holiday, etc. So by this, what do I mean? It's that often you'll find that groups who think that they're going to book it in as they go forget to book it, and I can chase within reason, but that is not my, I work with the groups who turn up to things and stuff like that. So, and also I don't know what's going. Sometimes personal issues come up for groups, and I don't know how much to kind of push people. So, I would suggest, but it is up to you, that you book in your sessions right at the beginning, all 6 sessions over the 6 months. And you can, by saying it can be front loaded, maybe you've got a particular application that you want to work on, and you know that the deadline is halfway through, so you want to have more of your sessions all in one heap right at the beginning. If you can keep up with that work pace, then that's fine. Often what I find is that people do want to spread it out, because if you meet monthly, in between those meetings you need to be doing your homework, and you may find that it's difficult to keep up if you have them really close together. So yeah, just think about that, and each of the sessions should be an hour. So what kind of help can you get? And here I will ask the groups what kind of help they got. Here are a few different things. So coaching is where you set the agenda and I ask questions to help you realise what you want to do. So that's quite a kind of I'm a bit of a neutral blank canvas. I reflect back to you what you've said, and that can help you to think through what you want for yourself. Mentoring is more directive. I would give examples from my experience of how to solve issues. So you come to me and you say, oh, you don't have enough money for core costs. And I would say, well, in my experience, it's good to diversify your income and so on. Training for your staff or volunteers on fundraising. So if you feel that all the onus is on you to raise the funds, maybe you want some other staff members trained up, or maybe you just think that the expertise generally should be in fundraising should be improved. So those can be good ways. I can help on applications. I can look at how to get core costs through diversification of income. So there are some different ways that groups have used this, and the video is in the way, but in the slides you can just about see above the circle there that it says cohort 1 and cohort 2. It says behind the circle, and I've got the front page here of one of the learning brochures where I go through how the different cohorts used Fundraising Plus and what they did out of it. So if you're a bit stuck and you want to know how to use it, then that's a good idea. Obviously we can discuss that too. So that would be the end of the first bit of the session. I'm just going to write down the timing for that. And we'll be talking about goal setting. So there's different models you can use to do goal setting. This one is the coaching arrow, standing for aims, for A, R, reality, and so on. And there will be cohorts that have done this before, because I used this arrow with the previous cohort. And so for those people who have done it before, I'm suggesting that it's a useful refresher. And if you are doing the plan, do, assess, review, this comes under the review, so that next time when you're planning your next lot of goals, you can plan really realistic ones that you've reflected on and you've reviewed and you've improved them before you do the next lot of work. Then you assess that work and then you review again. So this will be, maybe every 6 months you decide to do that, to have a little review of where you're up to. So when we've got the A from the arrow, we think about aims, and I think of this like a triangle, like the triangle of an arrow. So you have your dreams, which is that kind of the big goal, and that might be something like being sustainable in the long term. It's not as specific as when we get further down the triangle. And you don't have as many, so there might just be one at that pinnacle dream to be sustainable, to reach more people, that sort of thing. And then performance goals are where it starts to become more specific, measurable, and so on, so that it becomes more smart. So your performance goals might be increasing trust fundraising by 3% in this financial year. So it starts to be a bit more like grounded in reality. And then processes are the things that help us to reach the goals. So they're the small bits that make up that. So each of them relies on one another. the small things that you do every day, if pointing in the right direction, can help you to reach your performance goals. And if they're all aligned and helping you go in the right direction, they will help you to achieve your dreams. Oh, I've just missed the slide. It won't let me go back. Okay. So when we come to the session, we will actually be writing down a dream. And this one here is to increase fundraising capacity or to be more financially sustainable. It's that big top level thing that we saw at the top of the triangle. Then I will give people time to do their performance goals. These are SMART targets. And by SMART, we'll be talking about specific. So they shouldn't be really floaty. They need to be measurable. You need to be able to tell yes or no, did I achieve this? Achievable. So achievable as in, I want to raise £1 million by this time next year, but actually you've raised nothing before. That's not achievable because, barring a miracle, you've not got the track record and you've not built up your fundraising. Relevant. So we're talking here about fundraising. So it needs to be relevant to fundraising, relevant to your group, and time bound. So you're going to put a goal, a time on that goal. So in the session, I will ask groups which of these they think is smart, and you might want to pause here and then just decide which of these you think is smart. And there I've given the answers. So at this point, you'd be writing down some SMART performance goals, work towards your dream. And I've just put in a couple there that might fit in with the dream that we started off with. The dates on these are from when I did the presentation the first time around. So we've done the dreams, we've done the performance goals, which are SMART targets, and now we're moving on to the processes. And it's around breaking down your SMART targets into how you're going to do it. So to advertise for a volunteer before the summer holidays and working out what processes you need to meet these. So relating to the everyday, you have dreams at the top, which is your fundraising strategy. Roughly speaking, your fundraising strategy the ones that I do tend to go a bit further down into a work plan and into a task list as well. But your dreams will be that high level thinking. Then the performance goals, your work plan, and your processes will be your task list, which you can't quite see because of the video in a way. So we could stop there. How do you narrow down the massive list you have and add other things that might help? And that's where the rest of the acronym from ARROW becomes useful. So the reality is checking where we are now. And you might ask yourself all these different questions. And then reflection is working out how realistic everything is, what assumptions there are, and then what the different options are. So there are some different questions there that might help with that. So this is where I suggest we get to the processes. You might just brain dump everything down to begin with and write it all down, but the row bit of it might then help you to determine which bits you actually want to you're going to focus on. So the way forward will then be to get the highlighter out and say, I want to do this one, and then what order you're going to do it, your different highlights, you'll number them 1, 2, 3, 4. And you can ask yourself these kind of things to help you to narrow that down. If you don't know which ones to highlight first, you could say, what is your commitment to this course of action on a score of 1 to 10, for example? That might help you think, yeah, it's a nice idea, but I'm not actually that committed to it, or it's not going to make that much difference. It's not going to be the big thing that makes a difference. So yeah, hopefully the W will help you to determine exactly what you're going to do next. So when you've got all of this, we've got the arrow, and you've got all your different things that you want to look at. It might be that there are some useful learning days. So as the group, as Fundraising Plus, you get to determine what things we're going to cover in our learning days / learning evenings. And so I've got a mentee here, and within a certain time frame, you'll be able to go and look at this and say which things you want to do. So on there will be things like fundraising strategy, diversification of income, working in partnership, and so on. And based on that, that will help to determine what we do, and it will help to determine what order we do it in. But obviously, if I'm reliant on other speakers, or if there's something that I've done already, I might be able to get that out quicker than, like if it's a fundraising strategy session, I've already done some work on that, so I could get that out quite quickly. So it will inform, you know, the priority of what I'm really trying to get out there for you. So now on to the slots, different slots that people can book, and on the day people will be able to book some slots online. So just book your first slot, and then I'll be able to give out the future slots in the future. And there'll be some in-person ones, and as I've said, as I'm going to say, it is good if you can do at least one over the course of the 6 months in person. So here we will have a break. Just noting down the time on that. So here I'm going to do a little bit where the previous cohorts add in their tips of how they made the most out of Fundraising Plus. And here are some of the tips that I've picked up. Share the work or learning. So some of the groups have been particularly good at this. This isn't the full list, but 360, for example, Healthy Lifestyle CIC, they had 2 people along to each of the one-to-ones. Another group, I met with the chair. So I wasn't always meeting with one person, I met with the chair and I met with a staff member. The village came along to training. Another time they brought somebody along and we worked on an application together. And why am I saying share the learning? Because it helps get other people on board. It helps them to get into a fundraising mindset. When you're trying to explain, oh, I think we should do this, they also know what you're talking about. It spreads the load. It shouldn't all be on one person's shoulders. And so it's better for the organisation because it means it's more sustainable. If one person leaves, it's not such a problem because there's another person who has been on this journey. I've suggested booking in a face-to-face. I think it helps with communication. It helps, build relationship, which is something that's really useful in fundraising generally as well. The ones that I've put as in the timetable on the previous slides, that's mainly if you come to Lewisham Local, but we can work on me coming to you if that's possible too. Make the most of what else is on offer. So a lot of those groups made the most of, that I mentioned on tip number 1, made the most of coming along to stuff. So as I've said, you get priority on the learning days and they're in line with what you've requested. So please make the most of them. Please turn up to them if you sign up to them. And those ones are going to be particularly meaty. And it means that in one group, I can bring everybody hopefully forward in that thinking. You don't have to use up your one-to-one time learning about how to write a fundraising strategy. Go to the session and then, we can thrash out the details in one-to-ones if you want, but you're not using up all your time on them. You're not using up all of your time on training then. You're doing the learning days and then you're coming to the one-to-ones to get the detail. Make the most of the other things in the brochure as well. You know, just pick and choose from Friday Fundraising Club. Make sure you're on the Friday Fundraising Club WhatsApp. There's a WhatsApp for Friday Fundraising Club and there's a WhatsApp for Fundraising Plus. Fundraising Plus one is much quieter because it's, you know, the select group. See it through. So you can see along the bottom of this graph that time continues on, and at the side here, the experts written at the bottom have determined that this is the intensity of learning and the value added. I've added in the blue arrow. So forgive me, let's start with the BR in the bottom left hand corner. BR stands for building rapport. So when we first meet, you'll notice this in relationships, your working relationships, you'll build rapport. And some people love this bit, you know, because it's all chatty and meeting people and you've got lots to say. And I really enjoy that bit because it's nice making new friends. And then we need to move into setting direction. That's a bit about what today is about. We're setting goals, we're setting the direction of what we're going to be talking about. And in this point, we're also doing contracting, actually. It's not written on there, but contracting is where you work out what the parameters of what is and isn't acceptable. For example, you know, I will, you know, as much as possible, keep things confidential, unless it's illegal, or a safeguarding issue, that sort of thing. But you're doing all that setting of where things are going to be. The next bit is the progression, and this is the longest bit, and this is where you'll notice that the learning has really increased. So this is where the rubber hits the road and you actually have to do some work. So, you know, as we're meeting week on week, you set your goals. That's easy to imagine stuff, isn't it? Well, for some people it is. But then the next step is meeting each time and making sure that your homework has been done and that you're building on that. And then after the 6 months, the winding up phase will be the next 6 months, so months 6 to 12, where your learning may be increasing actually at this point, because you may be learning to be independent of me and you just be off doing your own thing, wonderful. But in terms of from me, you'll be learning less from me. I'll just be sort of checking in, how you're doing, being accountable. And so we'll be winding down, and at the beginning of the winding down, we'll fill out that end survey. And then moving on. So towards the end of our time together, what we'll be doing is looking at what next. So for some groups, you might want mentoring, or from another group, I might signpost you to other groups. We might talk about what other training is available, or set some goals that you then work on for yourself. So you can see where I got this from on the link. But what I've added in here is the arrow of pain, because some people really enjoy that beginning phase, but at some point the rubber does hit the road and work needs to be done, and I can help, you know, I can check over applications and things like that. But if that you need to make the decision as to whether you accept or reject the suggestions that I make to applications. You need to put the applications in. I can't do that for you. And so I think it's good to know that that hill is on its way, and that if you can see it through, you know, you can make some achievements and get over that hill of uncomfortableness, really. So do see it through is my recommendation. Number 5, my other recommendation, my tip, is to manage your time. So add reminders to your phone that that we're having meetings, or add it to your calendar, whatever works for you. I find that I have it on my calendar, but it doesn't, sometimes it pings up and I'm in the middle of something. I don't always spot it, or it pings up behind another screen. So I also have things on my phone. So each morning, your people at work will hear me kind of going, "Hey Siri, he's talking now." Reminder, and then I do it 5 minutes before the meeting, so I've got time to, so if I've got a 12 o'clock meeting, I'll do a leave. It's talking to me again. 11:55, I'll say, putting an alarm for 11:55. So yeah, that helps to turn up to meetings. And I would suggest also putting in block timings to see, as to when you're going to actually do whatever the homework is. So those are just two really basic suggestions. If you were here previously, you would have heard from Booker, who covered the Eisenhower matrix. This is comparing what is urgent, what is not urgent, what is important, what is not important. And so if you've got a piece of work, you think to yourself, okay, is it urgent? Yes, it's very urgent. Is it important? It's very important. And you can see then you would plug that into do it now. If you have something that is urgent but not important, you would reject it. And things like this are trivial requests from others, apparent emergencies that are not really emergencies, interruptions and distractions. And then on the other side, the not urgent and important you plan to do, so you might then put that in your calendar. And the not urgent and not important you need to resist. So this can be things like chat, texts, daydreaming, comfort activities. So habitual comforters are not true tasks, so they're not productive, and you should try to minimise or stop them altogether. So I quite like going on LinkedIn, for example, little catch up with what's going on in the world, but I don't necessarily do a lot of that during my work hours, because I could be on there all day, it just sucks in your time. So that would be an example where I would need to resist. What I found quite nice is the Eisenhower matrix is not the only way to do time management, and there's a little quiz here guys by these people, and it gives you some tailored answers and to how you might improve your time management. Even the questions themselves, as you start to think about them, can give you some ideas as to how you could improve. So it's quite a quick quiz. You're very welcome to do that at your leisure, maybe when you've planned it in. Number 4 on the tips, anticipate issues. So this is the speedboat analogy, which there wasn't a symbol for a speedboat, so you've got a sailing boat. But if you imagine an anchor is something that could slow you down from completing Fundraising Plus well, and the speedboat is trying to get you to where you want to go. So your anchor is pulling you back, your speedboat is trying to get you to where you want to go. So if you've got some anchors, think them through, maybe now. Think through what are the things that can hold you back. And if you do go into the case studies and learning book, you will see that for cohort 1, I wrote about how personal issues can pull people away from their work. Sometimes that can be rightly so, but if we look at it here kind of quite unemotionally, and see if there's anything we can do about it. So your anchor is that personal issues can pull you away from work. And so what are the speedboats? And I'm not saying that all of these are the correct things, but these are just some examples of how you could try to anticipate that and have a speedboat to get you in the direction you want. So could you anticipate that and think to yourself, right, okay, it's not going to be reliant on me. If I have a personal issue, it's not going to be so much of a problem, because I'm going to always make sure that I invite volunteer X along. Think about whether there are boundaries between your work and personal life. So maybe you need to, you feel that you need to set aside particular times to do your work and particular times to deal with the personal issues. Do something in the right direction, even if you can't do everything. So, you know, perfectionism can get in the way of doing anything, can't it? So, okay, will my goals, do my goals need to be even more realistic, bearing in mind that I know that there's some stuff coming up in my life that's going to be difficult, sort of thing. And as a small organisation, there isn't anybody to hand stuff over to. Make a note of where I'm up to so that when I come back, I can see what needs to happen next. So yeah, stuff might happen. You know, people might need to leave and go to a funeral or something like that. So if you've written down where you're up to, if you need to come back to it, you know, when you do come back, it will be easier for you if you've written down where you're up to. So I'm not reducing the idea of how important personal issues are, and you know, work isn't the only thing in our lives. So please don't think that. But what I'm saying is, if you anticipate that there are likely to be issues, you can then try and think of ways to speedboat across them. If there's time in the session, I get people to do an activity here. This will be the presentation of certificates, and this will be the end. Thank you.